In the previous video, we added more widgets to our GUI, and in this video, we will refactor the entire code to use object-oriented Python classes. So we'll refactor the code, and then we'll create instances of Python classes. We'll see a little bit the benefit of why it's good to code in OOP, and this is actually laying the foundation for our unit testing. Our code base is getting larger and it's time to refactor all of it into an object-oriented approach, and that's what we'll be doing right now. And this beneficial refactoring is actually necessary to lay the foundation for our unit testing of our GUI, and that's what we'll be doing in the next video. So this is required basically. And when we start turning the regular procedural code into OOP code, in the beginning it might feel a little bit tedious, but that I would regard as an encouragement to start with OOP right away and not wait too long. So let's get started. So let's first look at what our code will look like after we have refactored it to using object-oriented classes. And if you're not familiar with it, don't worry, it's not that complicated after all. One thing we can notice is the import statements are still at the top. Nothing has changed here. This is what it looked like until now. These are the import statements. But everything else from here, from the import statements, from below the import statements, to the very bottom of the refactored class looks quite different. So one thing we can notice is we put in self everywhere, and self in case of functions turns the function into a method. So now officially these are all methods now and no functions. And some of them we took out. So we had some inner functions, some callback functions, and we took them out, like quit here. I renamed that to GUI quit. So when we click the file exit menu bar item, now we do self GUI quit, which calls this method, and so on. So how do we get started to change our original code into a class? So this is what it looked like before. So what we do is we type in class, it's a keyword, and give the class a name and start from here. So we do this, and then we basically highlight all of our code all the way to the bottom here, and then we push tab and save it. Now don't get a heart attack, because everything that's in the Eclipse IDE in red is all error. So when we run it now, we can't run it, because basically, because we put it into a class, all of our methods are still functions. So what we have to do is we have to change all of them to start with self, comma, and that then binds them to the class. So it looks like a lot and it's a little bit tedious, but it's really beneficial, and we really want to do that for our unit testing in the next video. So I would recommend don't wait too long, start with object-oriented programming as soon as you can. In order to use a class in Python, we have to create an instance of a class. So we have to instantiate it. So the way this works is we use the name of the class with parentheses. So that creates an instance of the class, and we have to save this in a variable. So I called it GUI_instance. So we create the class and save it in a variable, and now with this variable, with this class instance, we can call any of the methods of the class, everything that has a self in it, and we can also access attributes, and that's what we want to do later in the unit test. So here we change the label to self update label, and later we want to read the value from it. So not everything has to have a self in front of it, like here entries frame doesn't need it, it's within this method, but the things we want to access from outside, we have to change them to be available to us. One big and obvious change is that we can no longer use global variables, or at least we don't have to. So what's up here, those items, those attributes we used to have before, we had them outside here. Before I made the change, so they were above the functions, and now there's the init, the _init function in Python classes. So whenever we create an instance of a class, this code automatically runs. So this will automatically be run the moment we do this here, the moment we create an instance of the class. And what I've done here, I've changed some things around a little bit. So first we create the GUI, we set the size, position, give a title, and so on. We create the image here, also now self.img, and then from here we can call methods. So as soon as we create the GUI class instance, those methods will be called, and basically everything will run by itself. So we could also call them outside but we don't have to. We can just put it into init here. So everything else is still working. We didn't break anything. Nothing really changed on the outside of the GUI, but underneath the hood, everything is a class. It's just one class. It could be more than one class. And we can now create instances from other Python modules and get to those guys. So we can call these, create widgets, create menu, and so on from outside, from another class basically. So again, the functionality hasn't changed yet, but wherever you see self, all of these guys here, all that's new. Alright, so let's move on and use it in the next video so we can test it automatically. In this video we used object-oriented classes to create our GUI, and in the next video we will be testing the GUI and we will use this class we just created.